I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you to this important Libraries Week event. Before we begin, I would like to give special thanks to Glasgow Libraries for allowing me to host my event in such prestigious surroundings. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the author who penned the Thumble Tumble book series, all about an extraordinary little witch from the magical Isle of Arran. And I've literally just published the 4th book, Thumble Tumble and the Goblin Pirates. I've been completely bowled over by the success of the Thumble Tumble book series, with the first book in the series being used as a novel study in over 90 primary schools across Scotland, and My Little Witch now featuring in the Visit Scotland storybook trail, along with some icons like Harry Potter, the Gruffalo, and Peter Pan. And none of this would have happened if it hadn't been for libraries. I grew up in a council estate in the East End of Glasgow. We had absolutely no money, but I had a wonderful childhood. As a child, I used to visit Parkhead Library every Saturday morning with my dad. This is where I first fell in love with fairy stories, because fairy stories would transport me to another world full of magic and mystery. On the way home from the library, we'd cut through Tollcross Park, and my dad would start to conjure up stories about the books we'd just borrowed from the library. So if we'd borrowed a book about trolls, suddenly there would be trolls hiding in the trees, lunging down at us as we made our way through the park home. The stories my dad made up were funny, enchanting, and sometimes a wee bit scary. A bit like the digital world. None of this would have been possible for me as a child if it hadn't been for the access to my local library. So when I found out that libraries didn't have very much funding to host events for this year's Libraries Week, I wanted to help. So what I did is I decided to take some of the funding that was supposed to be used to promote my 4th book, and I channeled it towards promoting libraries instead. That's when I found out that this year's Libraries Week theme was libraries in a digital world. And I have to say, I got a bit terrified. Between you and me, I didn't know very much about the digital world before this event. I barely knew the difference between a vlog and a blog. And just like many of my friends and the playground mums who I chat to, I've been reluctant to allow my own children access to the digital world because I was just terrified. I had no idea what they would face. But after speaking to these panelists, I've learned that my approach has just been putting my children at even greater risk. They're going to access digital technology, and it could be in an environment that's either unsupervised or unsafe. With 1 in 3 children now wanting to grow up to become a super famous, rich vlogger, it's clear that children are embracing the digital world, whether we like it or not. Our only option is therefore to increase our understanding of the digital world so that we can help make it safer for them. With libraries sitting in the heart of our communities, they are perfectly placed to help us. There are many fantastic organisations across Scotland working to protect the rights of children and young people. And I'm delighted that so many of them could be here this evening. While there was only room on the stage here for a few panelists, we'd be delighted if you could all join in the discussion tonight by using the hashtag Libraries Week and the hashtag Thumble Tumble. What we're hoping to do is collect as many tweets as possible so that we can create a Twitter story, so that people who couldn't be here tonight can follow the story online. And also, if there are any questions that you have for our panelists that we don't manage to get to tonight, then they'd be happy to reply via the Twitter. We've only got 1 hour to discuss this really important topic, but we're hoping that this event will mark the beginning of some more discussions and perhaps some fantastic new library initiatives. So without further ado, I'd like to invite our panelists to introduce themselves, telling us a bit about their work and how they believe libraries can help protect children in a digital world. Cara.
Is this on? Yes, it is. Great. Thank you very much for that. I am here today. My name is Cara Brown, and I am here to represent the Children and Young People's Commissioner in Scotland, who's called Bruce Adamson and can't be here today and was sad not to be here because this is something that we've been working on around digital rights quite intensely for the past year with lots of children and young people across Europe. My role is International Legal Officer, and I'm here today with EJ, who is one of our Young Human Rights Defenders Action Group, and she can tell you a tiny little bit more about that next. I guess I'd just like to say this is really exciting to have this conversation because it's not something that I've really heard before. And I grew up with access to a library when I was younger, and I've always been passionate about reading myself. But one of the things that I've found when we've worked with children and young people is that they're very concerned in Scotland about those that don't have access to digital technology, and that libraries might be a space to make sure that more people can have access. And I guess the way I see that libraries could protect children and young people better is by taking what we call at work a rights-based approach, which many of you here will know, but it is jargon, and what it really means is that children and young people have lots of rights, and one of them is the right to information, which libraries can provide, and one of them is the right to be heard. So I know it sounds like a bit of a cop-out, but I'll pass to EJ because participation is important, and that's what you bring to my job, hearing your voice. So I want to know a little bit more from you.
As Cara was saying, I was one of the member of the Human Rights Defenders teams. Together, we brought forward a report. I've got one just like here, all about supporting young human rights defenders. To carry on from what Cara was saying about how libraries can support us, was we put a recommendation in here about online and offline safe spaces. And I kind of was talking about earlier on with Cara about how libraries could work with young people and children in the community are going to be using the libraries, and maybe they could help design the space, design what kind of stuff goes on there. It might encourage them more to come to workshops about online safety if they're having a partake in actually who's getting to come and speak and stuff like that. Also maybe even online space that libraries could bring forward, like a database or a chat that they could come forward, and it's a lot easier to talk to young people through the interwebs to then promote their events for them to come along.
Hi everyone, and good evening to you all. My name is Victoria Orlica. I'm the member of the Scottish Youth Parliament for Motherwell and Wishaw, as well as the convener of the Culture and Media Committee, which is one of the 10 committees SYP has. I'm one of the 9 MSIPs from North Lanarkshire, and I am also a re-elect to SYP. I'm actually one of the bilingual MSIPs, as I'm originally from Poland. The Scottish Youth Parliament is a wide group of young people across Scotland, made of over 160 MSIPs, who represent the voices of young people in Scotland. Each year, SIP picks a campaign, for example, one of them being equal marriage, which improves the lives of young people across Scotland. SIP has previously worked on protecting young people online, and we teamed up with the Scottish Government to co-produce a consultation workshop on protecting from sexual offending last October in Kilmarnock. We did an online survey with questions designed by young people, our #What's Your Take survey, which got 546 responses. Young people reported that they felt less safe online with scam emails, data sharing, viruses in online banking, catfishing, pedophilia, hacking, and the sending of inappropriate images and revenge porn. I have more findings to share which you can ask me about later. Our general recommendations from the workshops were not actually aimed at libraries, but this event is a fantastic way of exploring how they could help us. Our ideas included a mental health workshop relating to ways young people can stay calm, think about before they type, send messages, photos, videos online. Ensure any education is youth-friendly, blame-free, but to the point, positive and non-cringy. Notification to check you're okay with sending what you're about to send. Think before you send type campaign, which is just a 2-hour wait if you are unsure about replying to a message online, and reinforcing that it's okay to say no or refuse to do something you're being asked to do. I personally think that the way libraries could help protect young people in the digital world is to have varieties of ways in which young people could protect themselves and stay safe, rather than having the adults doing that for them. I remember growing up fully on books, not so much digitally. And the first time I accessed social media, the first time I held a phone that had a touch screen, was actually pretty scary. I didn't really have ways to know how to stay safe, apart from asking my parents, but it was all new to them too. I feel like it would really benefit young people to have access to information about how to stay safe online, such as in school libraries, as a useful starting point. As I know that sometimes it could be difficult to speak to someone else about their digital concern, as it's often about protecting your personal identity or privacy. To sum up, libraries and the books within them have so much potential to help out a young person in need. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I am Carla Malseed. I'm a local campaigns manager with NSPCC Scotland. I am really bad for fidgeting when I speak, so if I move the microphone too far away, someone just wave at me and I will put it back. As part of my role at NSPCC, I deliver online safety workshops to parents as part of a partnership with O2. But I'm also lucky enough to work on a young people-led campaign in Angus about online bullying. So the sessions we do with O2 are about helping parents develop a better understanding of their children's online lives, what it is children do online, what the risks to children are, and what parents can do to help keep their children safe. And I was really interested there to hear Victoria mention a think before you send type message. And the campaign I'm working on in Angus is actually called Think Before You Type. And it's led by 16 young people who are aged between 12 and 14. And the reason it's led by them is we firmly believe that actually young people are the experts in their own experience, but also actually in terms of knowing what kind of support they need to be safe online. So Think Before You Type is very much an online bullying campaign. As part of that, the young people that we're working with led 15 focus groups across Angus. So 8 with other young people, 4 with school staff, and 3 with parents groups. And so it was actually quite a lot of research that they did and what they found. So they come up with 12 recommendations, and I won't go through them all for you. But at the heart of it, it's really the idea, that adults should listen to young people, both in terms of the impact that online bullying can have on their mental health, but also in terms of how adults should respond to online bullying incidents and what we could be doing better to prevent those incidents. And one of the things that really became clear throughout their work was actually that they felt that adults didn't understand enough about what they were doing online. And so that's why events like this tonight are so important. And I think as adults, we can be really guilty of talking to young people about the internet in quite a negative way. And in all of the 8 focus groups we did with young people, they generally said they wouldn't tell their parents or teachers if they were being bullied online. And I asked one of the wee boys why not, and he was like, oh, my mum actually blames everything on my phone. If I fell down the stairs tomorrow and broke my arm, she'd confiscate my phone for 2 weeks. And it sounds funny, but actually they are worried that adults have such a lack of understanding that they overreact. So I just want us all to keep in mind throughout this that actually the internet is amazing, and the internet has changed our lives in many ways for the better. I, for one, do not know how anyone found anywhere without Google Maps. And we know that children love to use the internet, and it can be really beneficial for them. They use it to play, to learn, to create and connect, the same way actually that many of us do. And libraries play a really important part, like Cara said, in helping those who might not have access at home do that in the library. And so that's why it's really important actually that the staff who work in libraries have a very good understanding of these issues as well. And actually we were here about 3 weeks ago and we did an online safety workshop with some of the staff in the library. So it's great to see the Mitchell are actually taking the lead on that already. Anyway, I think my 5 minutes is probably up, but I just want to say I'm really excited to be here. I think it's a really impressive panel and I hope we have a really great discussion.
Hi everybody. Thanks Angela for having me along on Libraries Week. So I am Sean McNamara. I am head of SILIP in Scotland. We're the Chartered Institute for Library and Information Professionals. So we are the professional body that all across Scotland, people that work in libraries become members of us, and we provide professional development for them and advocacy and lobbying for on their behalf for the sector. My background before that was I worked in public libraries for a number of years as well, and I think when I first started in public libraries were starting to just play that key role in digital participation, and at that point it was very much, it would be older people coming in, learning how to use Microsoft Word, and that seemed like the thing that you did, and that's what libraries' role was. And that's changed over the years, and obviously there's this assumption that young people already have the skills to navigate the digital world effectively. They grew up with it, so why wouldn't they? Well, but actually, people that work in libraries, often that kind of cynicism about it and that understanding of the deeper skills required to navigate the internet are very important. I think talking about libraries' role in it, I think it's not just public libraries. I think school libraries have a really important role to play in helping young people with digital safety, with understanding information and dealing with these things, and I think that's going to be the case going forward. I think school libraries already do fantastic work in this area. Public libraries are doing some, and they're developing that, and that's something that we can talk about today as well. And also higher education, further education, there's incredible examples of that, maybe more information literacy, but as I'll talk later, that intertwines with digital safety in many, many ways. I think, talking about libraries and funding and things like that, over the last number of years, library usage has just continued to go up. They've never been more used in the last 10 years as they are now. The only thing that's fallen is the number of people that work in them, unfortunately, but that's the real challenge, though the people that do are incredibly skilled and are perfect to help with these things, but it's all about partnership working, and I think with the organisations that are here and plenty of the others that are either in the audience or further afield, there's real opportunities for libraries to join up on that and explore that more.
Hi everyone, my name's Ellie Snapé and I'm here representing Young SCOT this evening. So for those of you who don't know, Young SCOT is Scotland's national youth information and citizenship charity for 11 to 26-year-olds. And a large part of what we do at Young SCOT is about informing young people on a wide range of things. We also have the Young SCOT National Entitlement Card, which some of you may be aware of, especially if you've got young people yourselves. And also we work with groups of young people to tackle different issues in society, empowering them to affect decision makers and influence the way that policy is made in Scotland. We're here tonight really because one of the projects that we've been working on over the last few years, called 5 Rights, is all about staying safe online really, and children's rights in a digital world. So 5 Rights is a national foundation within the UK, and Young SCOT lead on that in Scotland in work funded by Scottish Government. And what we've been doing really is we worked with a group of young people on the 5 Rights. They were the 5 Rights Leadership Panel, and they've actually produced a report, which there are copies of here tonight, I think a few, but is also available online, and I encourage you to read it. But 5 Rights is really all about incorporating the rights of the child into online spaces. So the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child is 30 years old this year. And so then it was written really in a time when there wasn't a digital world for young people to be in. And so what 5 Rights is about translating those rights into these new digital areas that young people are inhabiting. And it's really focused on encouraging young people to use the internet and the online spaces wisely. As others have said, we think that the internet and digital resources are fantastic for young people. They provide so many opportunities, so much information. And it's really about helping young people to use the online spaces creatively, knowledgeably, and fearlessly, as the 5 Rights would say. So that's one of the things that we're really involved in here in Scotland. And alongside that, we also produce our own information on sort of cyber resilience and online security for young people. We've got a project called DigiEye, which is D-I-G-I, and then A-Y-E. I think it sounds better if you're Scottish, unfortunately. So DigiEye is all about producing information to help young people navigate online spaces, whether that's staying safe on social media, how to avoid being scammed, how to stay safe and avoid grooming and things like that. And if you go onto the Young Scot website, which is young.scot, and have a little search for things like that, you'll be able to find a lot of content we've produced about staying safe online. Similarly, if you head onto YouTube, you'll find some videos that we've put up there about staying safe online too. So I think that's probably my 5 minutes up as well, so I'll pass the microphone along now. But thanks very much for having us.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Horan. I'm the chair of the Youth Libraries Group for Scotland, which is a branch of SILIPS, and we provide training and CPD opportunities to librarians who work with young people, and also we extend that to teachers and other people who work with young people as well. I'm also a rep on the national YLG group, where I get to represent the needs of Scottish librarians UK-wide. I'm a former school librarian, so I have been involved in various approaches to teaching about how we support digital skills, support digital learning. I've tried a few initiatives that have worked and some that have not, and it's really interesting to hear just what other ideas are out there. One of my roles was to set up a school website, and I'm sure quite a few of you will have a similar background, and that really teaches you an awful lot, but I feel that I still have so much more to learn. So hopefully tonight I'm going to pick up a few hints myself.
Do you think that digital safety should be an integral part of information literacy programmes delivered in libraries?
Yeah, first of all, the national strategy, which, if anyone doesn't know, in Scotland we've got the first national strategy for school libraries, which is the first of the UK. So it shows you that in this country, just the support there is for the library network from the Scottish Government, which is really, really helpful. But that now sets a blueprint for how we go forward, and it does bring up a lot of these issues about how information literacy, what that means, and how that intertwines with digital safety. And I think they're always going to be intertwined. I think we often think of this idea of digital safety or online safety to be about those kind of really, really big things like online grooming and other more dangerous things around that, where actually it's a big wide spectrum of things that come under digital safety that cross over with information literacy. That can be what people are reading online, how they're understanding it, whether they're reading something political or something about advertising or something on Instagram or a whole range of things that might not be illegal, but it might still be unsafe if they don't understand how to interpret that correctly and how to read that and how to evaluate that. I think it is a key part moving forward within the national strategy. And I know that we work quite closely with a partner organisation called the Scottish Library and Information Council, who you'll know, and they have a dedicated person within their organisation that's developing an information literacy toolkit. Which I imagine will include a lot of things around digital safety and a lot of things that we're going to talk about today, and that should be coming out in the early part of next year. So hopefully that will provide a toolkit that librarians that can work with teaching staff and develop some tools that can support young people.
We're now beginning to wonder how the panel think we could make best use of the digital world itself to support children in learning how to stay safe online.
For us, a lot of the content that we try and create is really about co-production with young people themselves. So we've just started a new project about the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, and that's all about having children and young people producing resources that are going to be then distributed across Scotland to their peers, essentially. And so what we found when we've involved young people in creating their own content about online safety, it really empowers them, and it really gives them a really in-depth understanding of stuff and enables them to become peer educators as well, and to spread that word among their peers. So I think I just wanted to say that, it's about using the same technology, but just involving young people perhaps in an earlier stage of getting it out there. But I want to hand over as well to hear your thoughts.
I'm glad to hear that you've had a visit from Buddy and the Speak Out Stay Safe programme. I think there's lots of new technology coming out all the time that is specifically designed for children, both to keep them safe and to be a bit fun. So Childline have an app called Zip It, which is about, it gives children a way to respond to requests for sexual images in a way that is easy for them to do it and non-threatening, and it doesn't mean that they have to necessarily address it there and then, but it's fun pictures that they can send back. The BBC have also just released a new app called Own It, which is amazing, and really that actually goes again back to the think before you send thing. So we think of the risks to children online in terms of 3 categories. So what they see online, who they meet online, and what they do online. And I think all of those risks are addressed in different ways. So some of them are obviously through using technology, both through the technology children use, but also we as adults use. But a lot of it actually goes down to parenting and having lessons, both from parents and from schools, about how to stay safe. And a lot of that you'll be doing obviously already. And I think actually the key is to just keep having them. We don't have conversations with children only once about how to cross the road, and so we shouldn't only have a one-off conversation with them about how to stay safe online. But I do think there's lots of new technology coming out all the time. And we have an e-newsletter that goes out called NetAware, and it sends out information about new apps and things. But I think, as Ellie said, it is about co-production with children and young people. They know best actually what they're going to be interested in. And I think just the final thing I'll say on this is, one of the things I think we all worry about with adults are obviously those 3 risk categories. But actually, whenever we speak to children and young people, they worry about those risks too. And they don't want to necessarily find themselves speaking to a stranger or spending a lot of money accidentally either. So it's about recognising that they're worried about these things as well, and just having those conversations early and often.
We've had a few questions submitted by people who couldn't be here tonight, and one that I've been asked to read out is, what can be done to support children and young people's mental health when it comes to social media, and where can libraries help? I was wondering if any of the panellists want to try and begin answering there.
So one of the things that I've been involved in over the past year is all of the children's commissioners across Europe are part of a big network called ENOC, which stands for the European Network of Ombudspersons for Children. And a couple of years ago, the network created another network of young advisors, so lots of young people from across Europe who advise those commissioners. And actually one of those advisors is in the audience at the front, Clara. Hi, Clara. And Clara was part of the group last year, so from a number of different countries, and the theme last year was mental health. And the theme this year that I've been working on, because the first day of my job was at the conference in Paris that Clara was presenting all of their recommendations at. This year, the theme was all about digital and about protecting children's rights in the digital environment. So I think it's really interesting that those 2 themes ran together, because what we noticed was a lot of what was being discussed in the mental health theme last year was around digital concern, and the way that social media in particular impacts everybody's mental health, not just children and young people, but particularly children and young people, and particularly young women. And then this year, the digital theme, a lot of the conversation was around mental health. So one of the things that we were discussing this earlier, like how could libraries play a role in this, and we were talking about the things that we might want to see in a library, which I think you might want to talk a little bit more about perhaps. But I just wanted to say that in connection with what everyone's discussed so far, the really interesting thing that stood out for me this year with the group of young people that I worked with, and there was about just under 100 of them all together, was that they kept saying, don't tell us not to go online, don't tell us not to do these things, don't just speak to us about the dangers, because it's going to happen. We are online, so are you. And so we need help not only to protect ourselves online, but also when things do go wrong, because that's life. As they always have done, and they continue to do, and are perhaps heightened online in some ways, please make sure that the services are there and promoted for afterwards and during. And I think that's really important to remember.
So to continue on from what Cara was saying just before, the way that libraries could support when it comes to the mental health issues with online problems, we were talking about maybe like really emphasizing on books to do with like body positivity. And we've been saying how online influencers coming in and talking would be amazing. There's some incredible online influencers that are all about body positivity who I watch when I'm feeling down. And I think it'd be amazing to bring them into libraries, have them talk to kids, bring out these books, have them as soon as you walk in the door, all about not just how to keep yourself safe online, but after the effects have hit you, how you can, make yourself feel better afterwards.
How can we get the message out to parents that actually we need to sit down and play these games with our children so that we can experience those games firsthand to understand the dangers rather than just going through the internet?
I think it's a really, really common experience that children don't want to go to adults and they think that the adults in their lives will overreact. And I think you're completely right that a lot of that is about scaremongering. And I think we saw that a while ago with the Momo challenge. We saw horrendous news stories come out very, very quickly. And actually, it turned out that what was going on was not the case at all. We deliver workshops in partnership with O2, and we do them in the community, we do them in workplaces, and we do them in schools for parents. And the big, big, big message in those for parents is that the internet is amazing. It's really great. And we always started by actually encouraging parents to think about what they do online. And I think as adults, like I said at the start, we're very guilty about talking about the internet negatively. And I think one of the big things I see is parents concerned about how much time their children are spending online, which can be right and is absolutely justified, but also we're never very concerned about how much time we spend online. And I'm looking at some other people on the panel here, but certainly the days I'm in work, if I'm at a desk for a day, that's 8 hours, and then I'll go home. I'll be on Instagram as much as any other young person. And I think it's just encouraging adults in children's lives to reflect both on their own behaviours online in terms of role modelling good behaviour, but actually just sitting down and having those conversations with young people regularly and reassuring them that, things will go wrong, but the most important thing is that the young people feel able to speak to them. We did research earlier in this year and we asked adults what their biggest fear was about their children being online. And I think it was 20% of adults said that their biggest fear was that their children wouldn't tell them if something goes wrong. But actually a massive number of parents just don't speak to their children about keeping safe online at all. So it seems like those two things are really jarring. So I think it is just enabling those conversations with parents to air their worries and become a bit more confident themselves so that they know how to manage their children online.
So I have a personal experience with not being able to sometimes talk to my parents about what happens online, because I feel like my parents wouldn't understand. But I feel like it would be really beneficial for young people such as like myself, like MSIPs, and even other young people that work for other organizations to kind of talk to parents as well. It would be also good for schools to kind of encourage parents to speak to their young people and to tell them that sometimes the things that young people do online are something kind of special to them, and sometimes it really means a lot to them that their parents also know about these kind of things, because it's just it's really encouraging that sometimes like a person that's there for you all the time, a parent that's been there since day one, understands what you're going through, because sometimes young people feel like their parents don't understand them at all, and that should be more promoted in schools. And I feel like young people also, such as myself, should also talk to parents and tell them, hey, this is what young people are doing, maybe you should join with them, maybe you should talk to them about it, maybe just start a conversation about it and see how much passion they have for it. Thank you.
I'll just add on to, you were asking about how we could promote it to parents, is as they get a group of young people to talk to parents, have them tell them about their experiences, because me growing up, I didn't have very many friends. I went to Twitter, that was where my friends were. And they're still my friends today. I've met them all now, that sort of thing. And that's where I discovered myself. And my parents kind of look at it as a sort of, they didn't like that I was doing that, but I wouldn't be who I was today if that wasn't the case. I wouldn't know about all stuff like LGBT, stuff like that. I wouldn't have no idea. So I think like for example, if I was to go up, tell my parents about my experience, that kind of opens their eyes a little bit about what is good about it and how it does help.
I think that was an excellent question. And the one thing that I've just realised is I know nothing about Fortnite. My children don't play Fortnite. I've not banned them from playing it. They've just not asked me. But I don't know if that's because if they ask me, they might know the answer in advance. So after tonight, I think something that I would really like to do is maybe learn to play Fortnite. And I'm just wondering if that is a way maybe that libraries can help. Maybe not particularly Fortnite, but, you know, I'm on Twitter. That's about it. So I know how to work that. So you know, I know about some things in the digital world, but genuinely not probably the things that are really of interest to my kids. So is that something that...
Yeah. I think what we found recently is libraries are used now more by young people than they've ever been before. So I think they're a place where people can start to go and do things like that. Recently, there's been a lot of code clubs going on in libraries. There's been a lot of things like that are bringing young people in around something that they enjoy doing, they can learn about, and libraries are basically providing that safe space where people can go and do that for free without having to go and buy a coffee or anything like that, can just go and interact with other young people and do something like that. You know, that's probably a blueprint for more things like that might provide, because that's what libraries are. They're social infrastructure. They're a place where people can go and take forward the things that they're doing online in a place where they're surrounded by people with expertise or people that can facilitate that. So yeah, there's definitely a role for it.
Well, that would be good. I would quite like to see that in libraries, somewhere where maybe parents can go with their children, and maybe some of these guys can, you know, help give us some of their experiences, how to take that forward. That would be excellent. Are there any more questions from the audience tonight?
Someone on the panel, I think it was the same person, mentioned online influencers. So if these people had an avenue through the libraries, for example, or through council infrastructures, is that feasible?
The real influencers for me are the young people themselves, because they know so much more than I do. And I feel that I'm relatively close to their age, but that's probably becoming less true as the years go on. But one of the things that I've been involved in before is working in a scheme. We called it Cool Computing, and we set our senior pupils out to the public library to train senior citizens on how to use technology, maybe FaceTiming their grandchildren or setting up an Instagram, all these things that the young people do themselves. And by teaching other people, they're getting that, they're kind of learning about the respect that you need to show online. They're learning about the kind of the positive sides and the negatives as well, and they're able to pass that on. So I think that's a great use of our resources, to use the young people that we have and to give them that kind of feeling of ownership. I think in terms of bringing in their kind of more popular influencers, that is something that we are starting to see through a lot of literature festivals this year, are bringing in people who work in that sort of field, and it is really appealing to young people. It's another way of getting young people involved in libraries and getting them to use our services. So it definitely is a positive, I think, and it's something that we're going to see more of as it becomes more popular.
Anyone else want to add?
I just wanted to add to that because I totally agree, and I think that the reason that we discussed it was because on the way here we were saying, like, would we have come to this event? Actually, I wasn't really including myself in this. I was saying, would you have come to this event if we weren't invited to speak at it? Because I thought that was a really important question for us to ask, and to see how many young people have actually turned up today to this, because they could do, but did they know about it? Would they want to come? And the answer was a resounding no. So we were thinking, if there were workshops on digital safety, if there were things going on, like, how would we actually get young people to be interested? And one of the things that you were saying was influencers, but we were pairing that with some other conversations. So it wasn't just coming to hear an influencer talk. We were saying, how would we use that or take advantage of that, like, excitement and buzz around an influencer to also have important conversations. And one of the things that EJ and the group raised in their human rights defenders report, because they're all activists doing incredible work in Scotland, but feel like, I think one of the things that you've said, and you can elaborate on this if I'm right or wrong, was we still want to talk to politicians and we still want to talk to people who run libraries and teachers, but we're not always very sure how to have those conversations. And so we were saying that perhaps bringing those people in would be a way to get young people who are not necessarily interested, and to get the politicians in the same room, or the other influencers and decision makers in the same room as young people. Yeah?
I think that would be awesome as well. Can I ask, because I don't know this, other than, do influencers, are they expensive? Are the YouTuber influencers expensive? The reason I ask is because my friend's daughter is hugely influenced, but it was really expensive for her to actually just go and buy a ticket to go and see them at an event. And they weren't, I think they signed a bit of paper. I don't actually know what happened. They literally got a photo, but they had to pay a small fortune for that ticket and queue for about 3 hours to meet the influencer as well. I just don't know. Carla or EJ,
I'll just go quickly because I've grown up watching YouTube and stuff like that. There is some really expensive ones. I've gone to some shows where it's like I've paid a lot of money for a ticket that just was not worth it. But there's also some amazing ones who have gone on, they're not even doing YouTube anymore, they've actually gone on and they've started doing volunteer work, or they're working with different charities and stuff like that. So I really think it depends on the person. Because obviously they're just being themselves. That's what they're doing. So if they're a person that just wants to get money, that's what they'll do. So it really just does depend.
That was basically my answer. I was just going to say Childline works quite a lot with both influencers and different celebrities who will obviously do things for charities without cost as well, but I think it very much depends on the influencer and what it is that they're interested in.
Oh, thank you. Have we got any more questions from the audience tonight?
I'm a primary teacher in an additional support needs school. And is there anything out there that you can think of that we might have missed that's new and upcoming for that kind of sector?
I've just read the most amazing picture book, just to go totally librarian on you. It's called, I've written it down, Goldilocks, a hashtag cautionary tale by Jean Willis and illustrated by Tony Ross. And it's the story of Goldilocks, who Facebooks, I'm going to go and burgle some 3 bears today, and goes and then like, so, oh, Andrew's got it. Oh, Andrew could read that again after. And she kind of takes selfies of her eating the porridge, and she does all this sort of stuff. And then at the very end, spoiler, instead of the 3 bears discovering her asleep in the bed, it's the police who find her because she's posted everywhere that she's been. And so I'm a really big advocate of reading stories, especially with your age group, to kind of get those messages across. And sometimes stories will be something that will stay with them, maybe more so than using a digital resource in terms of remembering it. They might still remember we read that story, and it may have an impact there.
Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to? Yeah. Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you. Well, from my personal experience, I feel like books always influence me the most when it comes to learning anything. So I feel like young people would really benefit from stories that actually have that influence at the end, saying about like digital world and how it really comes to be, and really something that like when they read it, they learn something and it's a story as well. Because sometimes young people that I've like spoken to have that where they don't necessarily want to read information books, where they just have information and information. Sometimes they like this having a story with the information in it, so they kind of caught on more and learn more and actually remember the information that they were taught as well.
Thank you, Victoria. It reminds me a lot of stories I read. Fairy stories, obviously, are my thing. And, yeah, as a kid, most fairy stories were based on really creepy things like, Little Red Riding Hood was all about stopping children wandering off into the woods. And back in the day, the wolf did eat the child. But obviously, we've changed that a wee bit now. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, that is all we've got time for this evening. However, I would like to hand back to Sean, if he could just round off on his thoughts as to where libraries could take us now.
Right, yeah, sure. I think I think what we've heard tonight is there's so many amazing organisations doing amazing work already to support digital safety, and there's so much that libraries can learn. What can libraries offer? Well, libraries can offer the places, they can offer the spaces, they can, 500 libraries all across Scotland that are there to be used. And also we can build on amazing work that's already gone on in school libraries. I think if you look across the school library sector at the moment, that is something to replicate, because you've got a lot of them as safe spaces, places where people at school age, they might not go to the public library, but they will go to the school library, and you'll often find amazing people working out in school libraries doing a lot of this fantastic work and putting people onto organisations or doing some support in there. So there's stuff to build on there. I think for the public library sector, let's find a way to use those spaces. They're there, they're already being used in some ways by young people, but I think it's going to require working with the expertise of the people that are around this table and other organisations out there. Because libraries have already got really, really good people working for them that have got skills and information that can help young people. But if they work in partnership with people that really know young people, and work in partnership, like co-production, work with young people that already have ideas of what they need to know, then I think there's real opportunities there. But I think we just possibly need to link that up, because all the bones are there. It just needs to be put together. And really, if people around this table or out there are thinking about maybe working with libraries for projects around digital safety, go and speak to your local library, because they might just not have made that connection yet. There probably will be libraries that have, but there'll be ones that maybe haven't, and it just requires that conversation, because libraries are evolving all the time, and how young people use them is changing all the time. So it would be a really good time. Just go and have a chat. The library staff will always be willing to listen and come up with a project with you and work together on that.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, all of you, for coming along tonight, and thank you to the rest of my panellists, of course. Also, thanks to everyone who's engaging on social media. If you can keep the chat going using the hashtag Thumble Tumble and the hashtag Libraries Week, that would be fantastic, because it would be absolutely awesome to see if we can have any exciting initiatives created in libraries tonight, following tonight's event. And finally, I would like to leave you with a quote from one of my books, which I feel really captures the essence of our libraries, which are free and accessible to everyone. This is Violet, the Queen's younger sister. This wee scoundrel loves to read, so she used to visit me to use my library. Well, to be precise, she broke into my library. But then she realised she didn't need to sneak in and pinch my books, as they were all available for her to borrow. Thank you again for coming along tonight. I wish you all a pleasant and safe and pleasant journey home. Good night.